Gurudev Ji, you are often referred to as the last living master of Sanatan Shastar Vidya. Is that true?
Even though everybody reads the scriptures, it says the Guru's actual instruction, genuine Baba, every genuine true sadhu you'll find numerous which are fakes.
Why don't Sikhs cut their hair?
So all our devte, from Shiva to Vishnu to Durga Ma, they all Shastradhari.
Do Sikhs believe in heaven, hell or reincarnation?
But to believe that there's actually a physical place out there where God is torturing you and all this and so on, that's a Western kind of concept. Like in every family, you have a good person, majority are good, and then you have that bad apple. Like
It can impact your physical body also, the ego?
ego is the biggest impediment to any kind of progress.
Taking charge of your chariot, like Krishna guided Arjuna.
This is a Kshatriya. If 6 people attack you with weapons and they're going to kill you, we're not taught to seek the truth. We're taught to seek the lies first. In India, young girls are spoken as the form of the Devi, like the Kanchika and all this and so on. But then you have the other ugly reality of it. Like God for us is...
Hello and welcome to the PVT Show podcast. I am your host, Poonam Vijay Thakkar. On this show, I bring to you conversations with leading authors and top leaders who energize the mind, challenge the norms, and awaken a purpose. It's all about conscious growth with one powerful book and one powerful story at a time.
Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to the PVT Show podcast where we have conversations that truly energize one's mind. Dear friends, what if I told you that one of India's oldest warrior sciences, rooted in Dharma, nearly erased by history, is still alive in the hands of one last living master? Today we sit down with Gurudev Nidar Singh Nihang Ji, a warrior, a mystic and the final guardian of Sanatan Shastar Vidya, a discipline where every strike is sacred and the battlefield begins with it. From the forgotten power of Loh Mushti to the wisdom of Krishna and Arjuna and Bhagavad Gita, this episode is about reclaiming strength, stillness and spiritual fire. So if you're seeking ancient wisdom, inner clarity or the courage to face your own battles, this one is for you. Lean in, breathe deeper and prepare to awaken the warrior within. Let's deep dive with Gurudev Ji. Pranam Gurudev Ji.
Namaste.
Thank you so much, Sri Akal. Thank you for giving us the pleasure of having your presence on the PVT show. I'm really honored.
It's my pleasure as well, yeah.
Gurudev Ji, we have seen you speaking at different stages and at different places and in different podcasts. But this entire conversation I was very keen to have with you because I am very, very honored to be talking about Sikhism for the first time on my platform, and I'm very, very excited about it because whenever we have thought of Sikhism, Sikhi, and what you specialize in, it comes with great lineage, it comes with great legacy, and something that I believe the internet has been speaking little less about. So that's how I want to begin and welcome you on the show. When me and my teams were researching about the whole concept of Sanatan Shastar Vidya and yourself, we realized that the young generation or current generation would be very keen to first understand, and that's why they are researching. So it's not something that we want to push down their throat, but they are actually researching to know more about what Sikhism or Sikhi is. So since I have you, I would take the pleasure of first, asking those very highly researched questions. And to begin with, Gurudev Ji, you are often referred to as the last living master of Sanatan Shastar Vidya. Please forgive me for asking this to you. Is that true?
So at the present, if you go on the internet, and this day and age, you can find anything on the internet. Everything's there and so on. So when I started learning, I learned from Mai Bhago Singh. So that's from 84 to about 95. And after I left him, he asked me to spend 2 years moving around North India and everywhere I can to seek if there's other people, individuals who have this training, this Vidya and so on. So I met one or two guys who in the younger age have trained in it. But as they get older, they stop training or they go ill or whatever and so on. And in about 2000, I think near to 1998, I met one Brahm. He was an old associate of my Gurudev. And I bluntly asked him, like I'm asking, like you asked me now, I said, is there anywhere else who have this art, anywhere or anyone who has this art? And his reply, you can see in the audio recording in the app, he goes, no. But 84, 85, a lot of them got old and died, others who were too old to teach. So this art is now basically extinct. Like, so that thing, that what you're referencing, like Last Master, that was a title given by the BBC when I did a little documentary with them. And as a consequence, yes, at the moment, I'm the only one that teaches authentic, historical, Sanatan Shastar Vidya. Now, over the years, people have popped up that have taken Gataka, which is the exhibition art, and of non-Indian origins. And it's like a life or anything. Like, if something is going well, then people jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
If something is genuine, they want to, make a counterfeit and a fake and all this. And throughout history, the ancient Rishi Munis, the ancient gurus, have always been plagued by what we term as chunjiganis, like individuals who take a bit of knowledge and then just set themselves up. So for every genuine Baba, every genuine true sadhu you'll find numerous which are fakes. But if you generally research and then you come and study with me and so on. So when I do teach, I substantiate everything I teach. I teach it from ancient sources and so on. So the books and texts are mentioned and so on. And I spent a good many years now, for the last over 15 years, presenting this martial art to actually other martial artists, combat martial artists. Yes, the martial art world is also divided into exhibition stuff and into sports and then the actual battlefield combat stuff. And in amongst the combat stuff is mostly dueling kind of styles, where Kshatriya, Sanatan Shastar Vidya is a battlefield art. And having exposed this art around the world and so on, and I got those martial arts testimonials, etc. and so on. But like I said, in this day and age, as the technological age is growing now, to discern what is actual truth and what is false, it gets difficult and more difficult.
Yeah.
But the Sanatan Shastar Vidya, what I teach, is being recognized by martial artists and so on as something very unique. And higher martial artists from other martial arts, they can see elements of their stuff, their things that they would not reveal in general to the public. Because you realize martial arts in combat form, traditional combat martial arts, whether they're in India, China, Japan, or Indonesia, whatever, they are Gupta Vidyas. They are secret Vidyas. We have sayings like Jind Kaur, Tin Hishapaya. He who learns the secrets, he conceals them. Like, and Gupta Kedin Nath Ke Chile. The students of the master play in, they're called Gupt. They hide, they conceal themselves. They don't play in public. So the martial tradition, which is combat, are always being shrouded in secrecy and so on. And that's one reason that people don't know about them. Because they are meant to be Gupta Vidyas, hidden Vidyas.
Sure.
And then the other reason nowadays, like I said, is the industry of, I would say, fake, making it called deep fake videos, making misinformation. This is happening at now government levels, never mind individuals doing all the nonsense and so on. So before the internet came, your local village idiot was confined to your village. Now the village idiots are international. So you get a lot of lies, a lot of falsehood and so on. So Sanatan Shastar Vidya, what I teach, is the traditional authentic Vidya of North India. And the best way you can find out is come and train, look at the books with all the evidence presented in there. There's 3 volumes of Sanatan Shastar Vidya. The first volume, part 1, is out there already. Second part is coming out the next week or 2. And then the idea is to present this knowledge to inform the public, because the public has to be informed as to what is genuine and what is not. It's like in anything. In any if you buy anything from the shops or whatever, you will know that there's no malavat in this, or this is pure and so on. And that requires for you to be informed. So we're informing through the books and informing through the app. And then, of course, you can come and meet me, and then you can train with me. And then you look at what's out there claiming to be Shastar there or so on. So be careful. Like, there's always genuine, there's always the fake. And the fakes tend to have more numbers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They brand themselves more and market. And that's why the real ones we have to go and chase and find. The way I was, I was looking for somebody who can give this information in the right manner.
I mean, like I said, rare is, I mean, in ancient texts will tell you that, like what you call true knowledge, true vidya, especially in this age of Kal Yuga, is rare.
Right.
And this is, even though you may not think so, read the scriptures when you want. In the Sikh scriptures, it actually says which called Guru ka shabd ko birla jane. So even though everybody reads the scriptures, it says the Guru's actual instruction, only a few rare ones actually know. And that's always been. And then if the art is more and more subtle, then the more difficult it is to appreciate. It's like listening to Rag Vidya. Half the people that listen to Rag Vidya, most of them, the tone depth, so they can't pick up the subtle notes and so on. They won't appreciate to a level of someone who's informed to what actually is Rag Vidya or classical music, etc. So on.
Looking forward to learning a lot from you today. I have a bunch of these questions where I want you to please help us understand why this happens in the Sikhism world, in this sect. So first, where the most Googled question on the internet is, why don't Sikhs cut their hair?
Okay. So the Sikh tradition is a Sanatan tradition in its true form. And the hair is associated with Rishi Munis. In the Vedas, you have there's a verse called the Kesim, the ones with the long hair and so on. So the tradition of keeping long hair is very ancient in India. So amongst the sadhus, the Shiva sadhus, they will not cut their hair and so on. Even Vishnu Bhagwan, Krishna Maharaj, one of his epitaphs, is known as Keshav, the one with long hair, uncut. So on one hand, long hair is associated with spirituality. And on the other hand, it's also associated with Kshatriya. Sirke Sispag Vande Kshatriya Supat Sundar Lage. So long hair, on top, head a turban. And this is the beautiful form of the Kshatriya, the warriors. So these turbans that I'm wearing is a war turban. And rather than binding it around your head and putting it on your head, it is actually bound into the hair. So there's a small turban underneath, which is bound. So the ancient Kshatriya did the same way. With their top knots, they'll bind the small turban, then the larger turban on top. And this turban is known as the Malla. And he actually, even though Sikhs now, Nihangs wear it, but it's actually, his origins is from the Rajput tradition. As the Kshatriyas, the traditional warriors of India, the guardians of Dharma were Kshatriya. And in time, they were succeeded by the Rajputs. And so the tradition of long, uncut hair is both a spiritual tradition amongst the sadhus, okay, especially Shivite sadhus, and even like Vishnu and Krishna Maharaj known as Keshav, but it's also associated with the Kshatriyas as well. So two traditions, the Kshatriya warrior and the spiritual tradition come together, and thus we have our long, uncut hair. That's what it is.
And what does the turban really represent?
Turban is a symbol of honor. So if you look at most parts of northern India, when even today, like those individuals who may be never wearing turbans, but when it comes to weddings and so on, they always put a turban on and so on. And as a consequence, the turban represents pagdi. Like you can get the old Bollywood movies where the poor guy is putting his turban at the guy's feet, the criminal to beg for his mercy, because it represents your honor. So on one hand, it is honor, and the other hand is practical, in the sense that it protects you from sunstroke, etc. If you work in the fields, etc. And these kind of turbans I wear, like the Malla is a jangi bunga, a war turban, so they've got weapons surrounding them, and plus it gives head against protection to the head against blows and so on. Right. Now, India being so hot, if you were to put just directly helmets on top, the helmets will get hot, and the temperatures in the skull will increase, and so turbans will protect you against heat as well. So even if you wear a helmet in the ancient days, it will be under the turban, with the turban wrapped around it, the cloth, so it doesn't heat up. So again, practical reasons, it represents honor. It represents such called protecting your head from sunstroke and so on, against weapons, etc. so on. So the pagdi is ancient as India and so on. You see all the holy men and so on. And when someone gives someone respect, or they want to make him into Dharma brothers, they will share pagdi and so. So the tradition of turbans were in India throughout what before the British came, like only with the British Raj coming, and now people start adopting Western clothing. Yeah. So the turban went out of fashion. But even now, the iconic image of India is a guy with a turban, like. So those old images of the Air India logo is a guy with a big turban and big mustache.
Yes. Yeah.
So turbans
Yes.
are associated throughout the world with India, even though there are many other nations that wear turbans as well. But it's Indian. You see, if you got a turban, that's more likely India's going to be there.
True.
Mhm.
Who are Sikh gurus and why they are important?
So in all, there are 10 Sikh gurus, like. So each succeeds the other. And in our tradition, we believe that they are the same one Jyot. So Jyot is the divine light, divine knowledge, divine wisdom that's come down. And the Sikh gurus themselves, like I said, they trace their teachings are unique in the sense that they are interpreted for this particular age. So the Guru Nanak were emerged in the 15th century. And what we have now is, but their teachings are Sanatan, I mean, they're timeless. They have come down throughout history and so on. The same teachings are found in the Vedas, Vedame Namutam, teaching of Nam, spirituality, and so on. And it's just another interpretation of it, like in this particular age, because every age now, like now this age here, we need to understand things differently and so on. Science reveals new stuff and time moves on, etc. so on. But Sikhi, Sikhya, Gurvachar, the Sikhi is a teaching of the Sikh gurus, and their guru's teaching is a Sanatan teaching. And if you go to the very core of it, if you say what is it encapsulated by? It's encapsulated by in thought, word, and action, seeking the welfare of all, as we acknowledge everything is Brahm, the infinite. That is what the West will call God, we will call Brahman, what is infinite, what is eternal, and has always been, and he exists in two forms, in the Nirguna form without qualities, which is transcendental, and the world we live in now, of Nam and Rupa, form and name, it is Sarguna. But both are valid, like. So again, Sikhism is nothing, it is new, but it's an interpretation of a wisdom that never ages, a timeless wisdom indeed.
I was going to ask the follow-up question, which is very highly researched, is what is the concept of God in Sikh theology?
So God for us is Brahm. So Brahm is the infinite. Brahm is Satchitanand, same. So Sikhism's traditional Sanatan Sikhs, the framework, understanding is Advaita Vedanta. Okay. And Advaita Vedanta means there's no room for duality. Everything's one. And as our ancient Rishi Munis reflected, contemplated upon the reality of it all, what is it, where am I, why am I, all this, etc., so on. Ultimately, they came to the conclusion that it is all one. It's one consciousness. It's one universal spirit, and so on. So it's not distinct. That our true form ultimately is Brahman, the infinite form. So what is infinite? Infinite consciousness. And that's infinite truth that is eternal. And it's true eternal consciousness. That is the concept of, we use the word God, but it's not an individual sitting on a throne with long white hair and beard and everything else. It's not that. There's no rupa rekha. There's no form, no shape, no nothing. It is conceptual, but at the same time, it is a reality as well.
How would you explain to somebody? Very interesting point is that if somebody says this is a human body, we are made up of atoms and there are organs and it's a machine, nothing less or more than a machine. And one day, if there is an organ failure and the person dies, how would you explain consciousness to somebody with this kind of a thought process who wants to be rationally 100%?
Yeah, so we observe the world through our faculties. And so with eyes, we can see, but we can't smell with our eyes. Okay? We can smell with our nose, but we can't taste with our nose. So each faculty has a particular function that it performs as the five senses. So the ancient Rishi Munis, when they were delving into the reality of it all, they realized it is infinite. As they contemplate this infinite reality, and they contemplate more and more, the everyday person thinks about the five senses we have, the eyes, the nose, the ears, the taste. But there's a antishkan, the internal faculty. That state of consciousness, the higher consciousness, when you reflect on all and everything and so on. And this is done for thousands of years, like with the Upanishads and so on, all the Rishi Munis and so on. If you go in there, they were reflecting. They're pure. I would say they're pure scientists as well. They're reflecting on the very nature of reality. Even Shakti, his core principle, Guru Mantra, is working with gravity. And the ancient Rishi Munis practiced a science called Gati Vidya, studying of all types of motion. Motion of that's called how the sun moves, how the earth spins, how the waters, how individuals move, etc. So on. So these Rishi Munis were observing all and everything, the infinite. And as their consciousness raised, their internal faculty, the Altishkan, it came sensitive to something that is beyond, that is transcendental, that is the Nirguna Brahma. And that's how they came. So obviously, if you say, I cannot see now, but if your eyes are closed, of course you're not going to see. If you say, I cannot smell, but your nose is bunged up, you're not going to smell right. So you got to practice that spiritual discipline. And which doesn't mean just sitting in meditation, reading mantras and so on. It means living a spiritual life. A life where you create positive karma, where you seek what we say sarbat tapala, or in the Bhagavad Gita, sarbat hit, seek the welfare of all and so on. And thus declutter your mind of all the nonsense that's in your head, like nowadays in the modern day age, with the phones and Facebook and all that. The average person spends hours on just basically accumulating nonsense and so on. And so the mind is cluttered. So the ancient regimes meditated to quieten their mind, declutter it, silence it, focus it. And then they peered into this world. So the Sarvan world we live in, the world, the phenomenal world, as we say, it's called by Maya, what they need, illusion. Like what appears to be real is not real. Ye jagarachana sab jhoot hai. Like the average person, what he presents himself to be in public is most likely what is not what he is in private. People, in their mind, lying to everybody else, they lie to themselves. Like. And the world is also like this. So there's a Maya. So even now, like modern day science, they're looking at the phenomenal world. And when they look at the phenomenal world and they start then looking to quantum physics, the whole world perception changed again. Like at the quantum level, the world is completely different to what is at now at our level here. Like so, the ancient Rishi Munis from day one, as they contemplated, they reflected, they also realized there's a lot of what we see or hear or our senses or pick up is not actually correct. There's a lot of things beyond our senses. For instance, take animals. So animals can see light at a different frequency to us, so they can pick up colors and lights which we don't. So when we look at a tiger, we see orange and black stripes. When a deer looks at a tiger, it sees green. So our senses, they can be fooled, but our senses are also limited as well. And the Rishi Munis, for hundreds of thousands, for thousands of years, this is how they reflected and contemplated. And they put their thoughts down in the Upanishads and earth texts and so on. And also this Guru Sikh Parampara. So knowledge that's passed down verbally throughout the ages and so on. And the ultimate conclusion is, like they said, that there is one Advaita Brahman, Brahm, and so on. And they speak like Sab-Govinda, Gobind Abarna Koi, there's nothing else and so on. So they developed that inner faculty, which, modern day science will say, well, it's like a astute mind, a mind that can see past a wise mind, an intellect. You can have plenty of knowledge, it doesn't mean you're wise. So they can see past the illusion of reality and attain that, what we call the Tat, the nature. So there's a beautiful line, the Sanatan Shastar Vidya. So the similitude and the Shastra, just scriptures. So a lot of scriptures will talk about rules like thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do this. But beyond all that, there's a tatsar, the essence of it all. And that for that you need an enlightened guru. And this is always been throughout Indian tradition. An individual who is actually enlightened to the truth. And sadly, but for every truthful, actual guru, you're going to meet many false ones as well. So Brahman of the Advaita Vedanta that is the god of traditional Sikhism.
This brings me to actually interrupt the flow that we have and ask you this question. How did you meet your guru? How did that happen?
So when I was 16 years old, and when I was young, at the age of about 5, 6, I had stayed in India. My father brought me back, and then my great grandmother, she kept me in India. She didn't let me go back, so I stayed with them for like 5, 6 years, whatever. And then eventually, my mother got worried that I won't get no education. Because in the village, my great grandmother was just let me play and do whatever I want, and I didn't have to go to school, so I had
Okay.
great freedom there. And for my mother was concerned, so I had to go back. I wanted to study, and then my great mother actually became old, and she wanted to see me for the final time, and so she asked my father to bring me. And then I went back, and then again she goes, "Do you want to stay or do you go back?" I said, "Oh, stay." Like, so I stayed there. And then one day I was 16, so, and then I came with this local festival that happens, like a local every year in the village of Moore. There's a particular festival linked to the fifth Guru, Sikh Guru, and the local villages, they do different seva there. Some provide food, some provide water, some do this, that. And so our village is going there. So I went there as well. And it was there that as I was wandering around, I saw from a distance a old Nihang, and he was discussing or talking about things with certain young men. And so I went in and so listened in a bit, and I caught the tail end of the conversation. And I realized they're talking about martial arts, like Shastar Vidya and so on. And then when the conversation finished, he looked towards me and he beckoned me over, like, and all he said was, "Do you want to learn your ancestral Vidya?" And I'm thinking, yeah, why not? Got nothing else to do. Then he says, "Come here tomorrow morning." And simple as that, I met him.
So, Guruji, the next very well thoroughly researched question is, what are the 5 Ks and why do Sikhs wear them? The Kesh, Kangha, Kada, Khachera,
Yeah, Kirpan, yep.
Kippa.
Okay, so traditionally there were not the 5 Ks.
Okay.
Traditionally there were 3 Ks. Kash, Kes, Kirpan, Mudra, Sojan. So the Kashera is basically the shorts that they wear up to, it has to be specifically covering the kneecap and so on. And if you look at Indian tradition in general, the warriors, when they dressed for battle and so on, they wore like lungi types and so on. And then if you're trying to get on a horse and try to be active, you have to tuck the lungi into your waist and so on, and it caused a problem. Like, so eventually some clever person decided to just sew the lungi up and so on, make into a shorts, a kashera and so on. So in Sikh tradition, the kashera is actually linked with Ramachandra. And he said once Ramachandra was bathing, and then Hanuman came with the news of Sita, etc. And then the Guru, and he had nothing else to give, and he just gave his spare kashera there to Hanuman. Thus, Hanuman is always represented with a kashera, and it's a symbol of jat, or what you call chastity, etc., so on, and warrior discipline, etc., so on. But to be honest with you, the kash is just a practical underwear that warriors, so they can be active, they can jump on and off horses and be active, and rather than gathering the underclothing every time they're going to engage with someone. So very practical. So the kash, like I said, in traditional Sanatan Sikh world, is traced back to Hanumanji, to Sri Ramchandra and so on. So kash is there. The long hair we already covered is a symbol of the ancient sages, rishi munis, etc., and so on. And of course, the hair is also linked with Devi Ma, Kalaka as well, in the Sanatan Sikh understanding. And thus, the hair has to be maintained. I mean, one of the biggest, like I said, issues for warriors is always hygiene and so on.
Yeah.
And with the heat and dust in India and so on. And then with the hygiene, you also talk about lice and so on, etc. as well. The practicality of keeping a too fine. On one hand, the combs are there just to comb you, your beard, your hair, and so on. And so in World War One, where Sikhs were in World War One, in the trenches in Europe, the Europeans had a lot of issue with lice. And you would expect, like, hang on a minute, Sikhs with long hair and beards, they have the most big issues with lice. But no, because they know how to groom themselves with the fine combs and so on. There's none of that issues there. And then again, the actual combs, which we always, as Nihangs, we always keep 2. And they're wooden combs. And these combs are also utilized to anchor the top knot when you weave into the first turban, to make a firm base upon which the war turban can be tied. So that's a practical side which most people don't know. That's the Ganga side of it. The kada itself, which comes in various forms like this or that, apart from ancient warriors on the battlefield will wear gauntlets that will cover their forearms and so on, so they'll get cut and so on in battle. But if you're a poor fellow or you don't have gauntlets, or in everyday life, then these bracelets come handy. So they practically will defend you. They defend your wrist and so on, and they can also take it in hand, engage if you need to. So they're weapons, and it's pragmatical, it's practical, and in the modern day and age, many Sikhs in the West have to feel that to justify to Europeans, and the idea of presenting this as a weapon becomes a bit like unpractical. They don't want to hear that. And many Sikhs nowadays don't wear big thick bracelets like the war turbans, like the war types. Just like the war turbans they don't wear the war bracelets either. They wear small ones, thin ones, which we Nihangs call tabla bajana, because when you do tabla playing, the big ones are not good because they'll break them. So they wear the skinny ones, the little thin ones. But again, it is associated with the Kshatriya tradition. So the kadas, again, are not just Sikh-like. Just like the long hair, Kshatriyas long hair, Kshatriyas would call, obviously with the comb underneath to bind the hair and so on. The kadas, you can find in ancient murti of Shiva and Devi Devta, etc. and so on. And then, of course, you have it called, you got the long hair, you got the comb with there, you got that called the bracelet, you got the kach, and then eventually you got the kirpan. So the kirpan is traditionally a 3-foot sword. So in Indian constitution, Sikhs are allowed to keep this 3-foot sword. But for practicality, most Sikhs, apart from Nihangs, because Nihangs, they tend to maintain the old traditions. Right. The average Sikh carries a small blade. So something like this, they'll carry something like this.
Okay.
But even not like this, most of them, because they're not warriors anymore, they don't practice the martial traditions, so they carry a symbolic one. Whereas warriors, the Nihang, they carry actual weapons which can be utilized and so on. So minimum is required that. And the kirpan, of course, is seen as a gift to the Devi Ma, or Chandi and so on. And you must have a sword which is not blunt. So someone like Nihangs, like myself, we always keep our swords where we go, right next to us. So they're not far away. Okay, so it's the cardigan, and they are razor sharp, and wherever we go, they go with us. Because the sword is worshipped.
Yes, worship.
I mean, in India, this understanding in the past amongst the Marathas, the Rajputs,
right,
the Bhagur Jats, all the Kshatriya warrior traditions had that. Like in many parts of India, come to the Seva time, they still worship the weapons and so on. And if you look at the way the 5Ks are, these turbans and the way we dress, it's exactly the way that the Marathas and Rajputs in the past would dress as well. Like. It's a Kshatriya tradition, and we have kept it. Whereas modern day Sikhs now only keep symbolic 5Ks as British Raj, and then the full dress, the blue dress as Nihangs are dressed and so on, and they don't do that. Whereas the Nihangs, they keep the ancient ways and so on. And sometimes amongst the Hindu world, you get some of the sannyasis and some of the Naga sadhus also will keep the ancient traditions. So they'll have trisuls and spears and so on. So it's the same kind of tradition coming from that side. And so they're martially linked. Yes, that's the specific goal, that each of these, so whether it is long hair is to anchor the turban and so on, and to anchor the top knot to the scalp, we have the comb, then the turban's tied on it, and then of course the bracelets are practical weapons as well, you can protect and defend yourself, and the gash, of course, again, for the warrior to be practical in combat and so on, and then the kirpan is obviously what it is, like, and so on. So weapons now, for many people, like, hang on a minute, we live in a modern society, we don't need to keep weapons and so on. In modern days, in the past, it would be criminals who couldn't keep weapons. That was the law. If you're a lawbreaker and you're not living according to Dharma and so on, you have no right to keep Shatras, whereas Shatras are seen as divine, as being symbols and objects connected with Devi Devtas. So if you go into the mandirs, Durga, which is the main deity worshipped by the Indian Kshatriya tradition, she's fully armed all the time, like Devi Ma, Kali Ma, and so on. Even Vishnu Bhagwan, who seems the benign Devta, Yet he also has his own Chakrapan and Sarangpan and so on. And then, of course, you have Shivji Maharaj. And Shivaji, since Adi Vidya, he's always armed with his Trishul. And he has cutters on his arms as well. Which sometimes are symbolically represented as Nagas, as snakes and so on. So all our Devte, from Shiva to Vishnu to Durga Ma to Kartika, even Ganesh, they all Shastra Dhari. Like. So for a dharmic person, in order to protect God and nurture Dharma, Shastras are essential. And whereas, like I said, in the Indian tradition, amongst the Nihangs and some of the Naga sadhus, sannyasi sadhus as well, there's a tradition of being Shastrasthatari. So Shastras are weapons which are wielded in the hand, Astras are weapons which are projectiles, like bows and arrows, things that can be cast or even firearms and so on. It's just part of our Indian tradition.
Sure. What is the Guru Granth Sahib and why is it treated as a living Guru till date?
Yeah. Okay, so the Guru Granth Sahib itself is the writings of the Sikh Gurus. Okay, the writings of what you call Guru Nanak and Guru Arjan Dev in the main, so on. First 5 Gurus, and also of the 9th Guru and 1 verse of the 10th Guru. The Guru Granth Sahib represents the tat, nature, the essence, reservoir of purest of Sanatan knowledge on Advaita, Vedanta, and so on, with a tinge of Vaishnavism. So in the Sadguru form, and the Sanatan Sikhs look upon Vaheguru, as they say, or you say God, in Sadguru form, Brahm is represented by Vishnu, and in Nirguna form, he has no form, no shape, and so on. So we acknowledge the Sadguru form of Vishnu and Shiva, etc., Devi Devta, and we acknowledge them, we bow our heads to them, but we don't worship them. Only Nirguna is worship, because in the Sanatan world, in the Hindu world, we have 2 types of worship, Nirguna worship and Sarguna. So Nirguna is the worship of a transcendental God, as you say, and its purest form of expression of this worship is that once you acknowledge that all is Brahm, Vasudeva Seva Kutumbam Kada, that the whole world is one family, then you will indiscriminately seek in thought, word, and action the welfare of all. And that's what the Upanishads and the Vedas teach you. And same as Guru Granth Sahib. So Guru Granth Sahib is purest Nirguna worship that was written down. And in the Guru Granth Sahib, you have writings, not just Sikh Gurus. Okay, so you have writings of Bhakt Jayadev from the 12th century, who was a Krishna devotee. You have writings even of Sufi, Muslim holy men, those who, if they're compatible and they're teaching seeking the welfare of all, and they're not preaching hatred, then that is acceptable. And one of the oldest versions of Guru Granth Sahib, you also have Mirabai in there as well. So the Guru Granth Sahib is, you got the oldest writing, which is from the 12th, 13th century. And then you got writings of Guru Tegh Bahadur and Gobind Singh, which are now coming in the 17th century. So you got like 500 years of tradition, but the actual wisdom in those teachings represent or reflect the teachings right from the beginnings of time. Or all the spiritual knowledge that has come down from the ancient Vedas. Vidya mein naam utinda se, Simar Shastra Veda Puran, Par Brahm ka kan bakhan. So speak of Par Brahm. So that knowledge is similar to the Shastras and the Vedas. And any knowledge in the world, anywhere, it could be Aborigines or Red Indians, if it chimes with this understanding of seeking the welfare of all in thought, word, and action, and bringing the world together in peace and harmony and so on, is totally acceptable.
Sure.
And so on. So the Guru Granth Sahib is spoken of as Shantras, containing the spirit of peace, whereas the writings of Guru Gobind Singh, which are also 2, Dasam and Sabla Granth, they are spoken as Biras, the warrior spirit. Okay, so you need to understand what Dharma is, so you can practice it. But at the same time, you need to be able to protect Dharma as well. There are many forces of Dharma. So you have in the Hindu mythological tradition of the Devte and the Raksha constantly battling
Yep.
and so on. So those Devte can be taken as or symbolic of the fight within us between what is good and what is bad and so on. At the same, so this ability to not just to nurture and promote dharma through the way we live, our examples, so on, and through what's called instructions and teachings and words. But we need also to protect it and defend it yourself, like, because if you can't protect and defend dharma, then your dharma will not remain. And the first dharma is to nurture yourself and protect yourself. So you have the ability to protect and defend yourself, and then you can defend dharma. Like, if you can't defend yourself, even how you can defend dharma? Like,
Right.
so they're both sides. We say they are two sides of the same coin.
Sure.
Okay, so you have Shatras and you have Biras. They are both basically the same coin.
Wonderful. I
It's like Guru Nanak.
understood it so
People
well.
associate Guru Nanak Dev with someone very peaceful and Shatras, and they associate Guru Gobind Singh as a warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't know that Guru Nanak himself was also armed and was a warrior himself, except in his day and time, he didn't do it for wage battles or wars in the physical sense, but he did it in a spiritual sense through his example and through his teachings, etc. so on. Whereas in times of Guru Gobind Singh, there was a need to defend Sanatan Dharma physically as well.
रुकावट के लिए खेद है. अगर आपको हमारा कंटेंट और कॉन्वर्सेशंस अच्छे लग रहे हैं तो प्लीज लाइक, सब्सक्राइब एंड शेयर करिए अपने फैमिली मेंबर्स और फ्रेंड्स के साथ. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वॉचिंग.
So, do Sikhs believe in heaven, hell, or reincarnation? Is that a part of Sikhism?
So reincarnation, yes. Okay, so all the faiths in India, apart from the Charvakas, have an understanding of reincarnation, and there's even understanding how they come to a conclusion of reincarnation. So they give an analogy. They said if you look at the koil, the Indians call a cuckoo bird and so on, he lays his eggs in the nest of a crow.
Yeah.
And when the crow, thinking it's his own eggs, they nurture it. And then, but when the chicks hatch and they're ready to fly, as soon as the coil comes and calls them, they fly off like. So here is a tradition. So here, this observation, because ancient tradition when were very wise, they looked at exploring the truth in various ways, from observation, experimentation, through what's called inference, analogies, through what's called deductive reasoning, etc., and through what's called postulating theories, and also taking the testimony of previous experts and so on.
Right.
So this understanding, they looked at the coil and said, look, this knowledge has been transferred somehow, but without any physical contact. Those little chicks know that the coil is blah blah is their mother, and they just go off and they act like coils. So nowadays we could say it's genetic memory.
Right.
That's the memories we are born. That's why parents, you can have children who are born and they, in behavior or in habits, they may reflect a particular parent or so on. But they know now there is genetic memory and so on. The ancient Rishi Munis interpreted this as that knowledge can be passed on without physically being passed on, like. And in their contemplation, reflection, and so on, and they came to a conclusion that just like when the body dies and the body then disintegrates into the five elements and so on, is broken down by the earth and so on, the heat is released and all this and so on, but it's recycled by nature. Is it logical to assume that our true self does not just die and vanish, that it's also recycled and so on? And looking at things like coils and all this thing going on, at some point someone came to a profound understanding of reincarnation. And then also reincarnation gets reinforced by the idea that if you do good karma, the result will be good. If you do bad karma, the result will be bad. And as a consequence, in order for society to function, they need morality and ethics, rights and wrongs, and the understanding of karma, implemented karma and reincarnation sort of plays into that as well. Like, so somehow the Indians came to the idea of reincarnation, and this has been acknowledged, like I said, in all Indian traditions, apart from the materialistic charvakas, so whether they are Nastik or Astik, whether they're Buddhism, Jainism, or Hinduism, they all acknowledge reincarnation. And in the Sikh tradition, they also acknowledge that. They recognize that your Atma, your true self, until it gains true enlightenment, until it tunes into Brahm and the interference of Brahman and realizes this infinite self will be reincarnated over and over again. Like they balance life, they teach like Dharma, Artha, and Kama. So Dharma is sense of morality, ethics, your obligations to yourself, to your friends, your family, your nation, the world, or whatever. That's Dharma. Artha is making money, wealth, because society requires that. And Kama is enjoyment of legitimate pleasures, and so on. Like having a bit of sugar in your tea or something. That's legit. That's fine. Legitimate pleasures. That's fine. And once you balance that Dharma, Artha, Kama, that your life, it's not just if you just say I want to do Dharma.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do any art. I don't want to do any Kama. So there's no pleasure in your life. There's no wealth. You'll be living your life begging from people. So if you decide I want to do Dharma and Artha, and there's no pleasure in my life, you will throw up on your life. You won't take, your life will be not worth living like. So you need a bit of pleasure. If you say I just want material wealth and pleasure, then you rot away in vices. So the ancient Rishi Munis, Rishi mentions like in the Kama Sutras, Rishi Vasyan, he writes of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and balancing it all out into what's called, so you can get then moksha. So very balanced life and so on. And Sikh tradition teaches that as well. Like, as you say about heaven and hell, there's no concept such that. They don't have the understanding. Like, so they may quote people who lower intellect, just to emphasize doing good. They may say like, if you do bad, you will suffer. Like, and that suffering is hell. Like, but to believe that there's actually a physical place out there where God is torturing you and all this and so on, that's a Western kind of concept from the Abrahamic religions. It's not an art tradition as such. Like, so you can make this very life you're living in now complete nark, or you can make it into swarg. But moksha is beyond that. Okay, so you have to go beyond dukh sukh, do penanha, they say, like comfort and suffering. They're like two clothes, like clothes we wear. Like, because if there's day, there's going to be night. If there's going to be pleasure, there's going to be pain. So the middle ground, which always like the understanding of a balanced life, a stoic life, and so on, that's recommended. So yes, to the people low intellect, or not even low intellect, say bachena, to kids you will speak in a certain way. Like you might show them an image of a Baba and say, oh yeah, that's the Guru Nanak, that's there, that is. But in reality, that's not Guru Nanak. That's some artist impression of him and so on. And if you try and say, oh, this is Devi Devte, and this is the image of Guru Nanak, and there's a distinction between an image and an iconic representation, like, yeah, a small child is not going to understand that. And even average adults not going to understand between. So if I, like in Makhadas, we have images of the Devi, Durga, Jagdambe, so on. And to us, they are iconic representations. Every aspect of that image, everything she holds, the way she stands, what clothes she wears, there's a whole meaning to it. It's iconographic. It's not just the image. Whereas image has no iconography, there's no meaning to it, just the image representation of it. So this idea of subtle intellect like this, understanding what is iconic representation, what is actually just a painting and so on. So you need suksham buddhi, like buddhi, like you need like a sharp and a subtle mind. And the ancient Indian spiritual traditions, they understood that the majority are not going to have that sharp intellect and so on. They're not educated, they haven't got time to study and all this. So in Indian spiritual tradition, there's two traditions. There's the bhakti marg of love and devotion and so on. It's far easier to teach a child how to love than try to explain what Brahm is and so on. And whereas those who go then next is called the Gyan marg. And our Indian tradition, like the Sikh tradition and the Indian tradition, they say like bhakti is like sugar, sweet. And Gyan, knowledge, is like ghee. Now, if you take ghee by itself, it can give you the shits and so on. It makes you, now you're going to mix some sugar with it. So, bhakti and Gyan is ideally best together. Otherwise, a bhakt who's just a pure bhakt and hasn't got a discerning intellect, doesn't question things, he becomes naive, and naivety can lead to stupidity, and stupidity can lead to you being manipulated.
Right.
Whereas a Gyani person who thinks he ends up thinking, I know all, ends up becoming egoistical, hankari, and ends up thinking that he's the only one, he knows everything. So you need to have bhakti and gyan together. So in the Guru Granth Sahib, there's bhakti and there is gyan, and it's balanced out and so on. So, like I said, the ancient Rishi Munis are extremely wise, ancient gurus were wise, and they understood this to bring the people on the path of Dharma. So what do you mean path on Dharma? Dharma means that which embraces all and everyone.
True.
So everybody in our society must feel like, in our nation, in our society, in our world, that they are all connected, and we should equally seek the welfare of all indiscriminately in thought, word, and action, and so on. And if everybody feels they're getting looked after, everything's well, like, then the nation, the society will flourish. So it talks about when no one fears no one, no one's intimidated by anybody, then you have a compassionate and intelligent kingdom. But if certain parts of the community or society perceive themselves being discriminated against, not being looked after, so of course there's going to be issues. Like it only takes one disgruntled member of a household to burn the whole house down.
True.
And so on. So the spiritual traditions are designed to bring them together. So in Guru Granth Sahib, you'll have teachings of the Vedantics, which Sikh Gurus were Vedantics. You'll have the teachings also of the Bhakti tradition as well, devotion of the Vaishnava school of like Ramananda and so on, Kabir and so on. You also have the Sufis that teach with the heart al-Wujud, that all is the essence of Allah. Like. Okay, they're not, the Sikhs are not stupid. They're not going to, okay, you got to make clear distinction between someone like ISIS, who teaches murder and rape and killing and so on, and then the Sufis who teach peace and so on. So, and then same way in any tradition, in every tradition, you have, like in every family, you have a good person, majority are good, and then you have that bad apple, like. So you got to put the bad apple to one side, like. So all the Syane bande, all the wise people, let's get them all together, like. So Syana ek gal, murkha pa apni, they say. 100 wise people can agree on one thing, and they can work together. Yeah, whereas the fools, every individual fool have his own understanding, and they can never work together. Like.
Gurudev Ji, what is Seva and selfless service, how we say in Sikhism, and why is it so central to Sikh life?
So Seva is self-abnegating service. Like in other words, the main part of Seva is to get rid of your ego. Okay? So ego, most people, I mean, everyone's got ego. There's no question about it, man. And Seva is one. When you go to a Gurdwara, temple, or mandir, wherever, and you have to lower yourself, pick those shoes up and clean them, utensils, you do menial tasks. So you might be thinking, look, I'm educated, I'm this. I shouldn't be doing this. But here you are now, humbling yourself before all and everybody. Sitting in the same, it's called pankt, as we say, the same. So in the Sikh tradition, when you do langar, whether you're rich or poor, whether you that caste, this caste, whatever, you sit together. Yeah. So provided there's no issue with hygiene or disease or whatever, obviously they're going to put a leper together with someone who's diseased or someone who stinks or smells together. But generally, if you're clean, hygienic, whatever it is, then you can all sit together and eat the same food. And thus, it brings equality and so on. Even in ancient India, you had the yags. When they did the havans, the yags and so on, the kings would do this. Yeah. And they will then throw a feast to everybody to bring whole society together. There's nothing more like, I mean, think about it. You throw a party, you have a lot of food there and all that. That brings everybody together. Yeah. Food, drink, feasting and all that. It's a means of bringing them together. And then Seva, which is Nishkam Seva, which is spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita as well, in the ancient texts. You serve you're negating your ego. You lower yourself consciously. You lower yourself. So in other words, your seva is done to eradicate your ego. And ego is the biggest impediment to any kind of progress spiritually. But even any, like a job or work as well, if your ego is such, you're not willing to listen to anybody, you're not going to function as a team in any form, any way. Like, And as I said, so suppressing of ego is essential for a spiritual life and even for a successful material life as well, and so on. If you want to work in industry or whatever, corporations or whatever, and so on, or if you're a warrior, you got to suppress that ego. Like, you don't know everything.
Yeah.
No one knows everything, and no one knows, and no one's always right. So there's a Punjabi saying like, listen to all, then do what is best. And when they say when you consultate, even consultate with the walls. Like, so in other words, before you act, reflect on the consequences of what will be, or if you said this or did this and so on. So again, Seva, its main purpose is to negate, at a personal level, to negate your ego.
Right.
And at the social level is to bring people together.
True. Very well put. This brings me to the last question of this segment. And thank you for explaining it so beautifully. It has, I'm very sure that the younger generation or the generation who's going to watch this, whoever, even when I was doing a little bit of research at my end for this particular conversation, I realized that even when I spoke to people who are Sikh, not everyone knew about Sanatan Shastar Vidya. So we'll come to that part. But the last question for your quick view is related to the most Googled question, and that is there free will in Sikh philosophy? Do we speak about free will?
So we occur karma through our lives, like, and the karma that we occurred in the last lifetime will take effect now, and they will shape our circumstances, where I'm born, who I'm born to, what's available to me in society, and so on. So that's Brahm. So every action we do, there is karma attached to it, negative, positive, whatever that is. Okay? So even if I'm, say, my action in thought, I might be pure, then I do something and it turns out bad. I unintentionally commit something evil, which I didn't mean to do, like. And so on. Sometimes you may go out to do something bad, but you end up doing something good. And so this idea of karma is very complicated in that sense. But in our Indian philosophical system, they say your previous life's karma, as you occur them, they play out now. Like, but through the Guru Kirpa, or true Guru, you can transcend this, transcend the karma and so on. If you now, with the grace of the Guru, you are able to live a dharmic life. So those karma can be effaced. You have to live through all of them and so on. But at the same time, there is karma, there are consequences of what you do and so on, but you have free will. Like,
How do you explain that?
free will is my ability to do something. I have a choice, okay, to do something good or something bad. But I may think I'm doing good, it may turn out bad. I may think I'm doing something bad, it turns out good, whatever. So what the outcome is not in your control. Okay, we can only do our best. Okay, we say, okay, I want to live my life the most honest way, the most decent way. I want to seek the welfare of all, everybody, etc., so on. Now, whether that happens or not, that's different. It could be due to their karma, my karma, and so on. But intention has to be sincere, like. Okay, radha. I said intention is there, like. So in the context that you have, like your intention, you have an intention to do something like this, that is free will there, like. That one says. So you can say, I will do this, and intend. Okay. Now what you're thinking or what you're doing or whatever is bound to be influenced by the society wherever you live and so on. So we as Indians are talking about reincarnation, we're talking about karma and so on. If someone living there in Bolivia somewhere or somewhere in Eskimo land and so on, this kind of understanding does not occur to them because they have no concepts of karma or this. Okay. So आप अपनी बुद्धि जेती बंद पिन तो है तेती, they say. So according to your intellect, everybody tries to express the infinite, the reality, the truth of existence in their own way and so on. And so we are confined by, where we are born, the culture, the history, and so on. And we're fortunate in the age that we live in now, we have much more access to knowledge. Okay, and we can fly to Bolivia and talk to those guys and Eskimos and all this, and we can read upon them and all this, etc., and so on. Now, whether all that information is actually true or false or whatever, we can't say. We still have to discern that. So, in the sense that you have the ability to pick and choose, like, I want to do this act, that act. Yeah, there is free will in that sense. But to say that what is out there does not influence you, like, does not at all, I can say, even your very actions that you think are free will may be as a consequence of those outside forces and so on. It's like you get the industry of the advertisers and so on. They do subliminal messages and put things in your head, and before you realize it, you're doing what they want you to do without realizing they're doing what you want to do. That's why the Rishi Munis spend a lot of time in deep thought, reflection, introspection, and so on. Okay, and as to get past this Maya, this illusion, this delusion of reality, and so on, and get to the Tat and the nature, and to seek the welfare of all and everyone in thought, word, or action is the purest of actions. Right, that is the only truth. Everything else is tainted by Maya. That's it. So they have a simple understanding. So there they have that. But like I said, it's a conundrum. And they have a saying like, is Sikhi due to karma or is it good kirpa? Like, do you attain Sikhism because you have karma, so you attain it? Or is it because the Guru was gracious to you? And there's a tale. They said a person died and he went to heaven. So they use like stories of heaven and hell, but they are allegorical. They're not literal. Like, okay, they try and send you a message. Like, let's explain things. And in heaven, he thinks, I'm here now. I'm here because of my great karma. Like, I did this. I was so great, so good, and all that. But that is ego. Like, and where an ego and the spiritual condition cannot be together. Like, so between the life of spirituality, Nam, and ego, there's an internal enmity.
But Gurudev Ji, how do we dissect this when, for example, whoever is doing a task, right? We get attached to, our identities are attached to that task. So we believe in the Maya that I have done it.
Yeah, even the way people dress.
Yeah.
So Lord in Kshatriya, I teach how to move with gravity. Okay, and it's a very specific way, learning how to align the body and move with gravity. But a lot of people, they invest their personality in the way they look and the way they move and the way they walk. Like,
It can impact your physical body also, the ego?
Yeah, 100%. The way you look, so the way you dress yourself, the way you put your makeup on, the way you stand, the way you walk, and all this, you'll find that is because you invest your ego into everything that you are. Like, so you got to get rid of these man, and all this. So it's practical. Like when I teach Kshatriya, I say, look, if you learn to align with gravity and learn to be moving in the most efficient biomechanical ways possible. So working with gravity, even from a non-martial traditional way, if you work with gravity, there's less wear and tear in the body. Your joints won't get worn out, your knees, your hips, and all that. So that's the most pragmatical way of doing it, like working with gravity, nature, and so on. But because a lot of people have their egos invested in the way they walk and they move, apart from many people now, because many people are not aware of, they're not tuned to gravity.
Right.
So the ancient Rishi Munis spoke about Gurtava Karshina Shakti, which means gravity. The essence of the Guru, that's the Tattva, like Gurtava, Akarshan, that attracts you. So ancient Rishi Munis, when they're told how to move, they told you how to move with gravity. And for many people nowadays, they're not aware of gravity. Their postures are bad, their postures are poor. From the way they sleep, to the way they sit, the way they walk, stand, even the clothing they wear. As a consequence, a lot of people nowadays have like their feet are crooked inwards, the knees are bent, the hips are bent, the backs are bent. Now they're computers, now the necks are bent and all this. And just learning how to correctly move in a relaxed manner is difficult. So people invest their egos into all sorts of things.
Right.
Okay? Only children are honest about it. This is my way of doing it. This is how I do it.
Yeah.
That's fine. Those are children. They can get away with it. So adults, they invest their egos into it. So a facing of ego. Oh, so getting back to that tale, the one in heaven. So he eventually got there and he thinks, that's it. I've done it now. And this is me because my karma. Then suddenly God casts him from heaven into a desert where there's no water, none of things, super hot and all this. And he's now basically thirsty, he's dying. And then a Farishta comes, or a Devta comes to him, and the Devta goes to him. Do you think it's your karma that got you to where you are spiritually there? And he goes, yes. He goes, tell me what, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a goblet of water, you give me all your karma, like,
Okay.
or you keep your karma. So he's now thirsty, he's dying and all this. He takes the goblet of water and surrenders all his karma, like.
So, Gurudev Ji, I think now that we are set to talk about the ancient art that with great might you're trying to preserve, you're trying to give that knowledge to the world, to the younger generation. And I just want you to help us understand that, is it anything to do with Britishers, colonialism, and what happened that suddenly this just... I'll give you an example. I spoke to 2-3 Sikhs who are from my, from around me and my friends and family, extended family, even say, and I said, do you know, especially the younger generation, they just didn't know. Even the older generation, when I asked about it, they didn't have much knowledge about it. So, little bit reflection of, from your point of view, that why suddenly this art got vanished. And I'm sorry to say, use this very harsh word. You also feel so or no? And what it has or how it can impact the generations ahead. The Sanatan Shastar Vidya.
Okay, so the word Sanatan means timeless. And Shastar Vidya literally means the science of weapons. So it's a timeless science of weapons. So northern India, so that's from Punjab all the way to Banaras, that's the east, west, even Maharashtra and all these areas. So northern India, that part of the world which is Sanskrit based, for them, their indigenous martial traditions, the battlefield arts, which they protected their nations with, their dharma with, and themselves with Sanatan Shastar Vidya. And the word Sanatan nowadays is getting more emphasized. And whereas early on it used to be known as Shastar Vidya, but in the 1900s, to make it completely 100% clear that this is a Bharatiya Sanatan tradition, they spoke with Sanatan. So Gurudev Singh's words in Sui Prakash says, Sikhh Dharma Kshatriya ko chalo Sanatanai. The internal dharma of the Kshatriyas, it is Sanatan, it is timeless. It comes from the very beginning, like. So it's indigenous North Indian battlefield art with which the Indians protected themselves and the nations and so on over the centuries. Now, with the coming of the British, they subjugated India. And obviously, they don't want anybody, any individuals practicing a martial tradition which is going to be utilized against them or hostile to them. So British India, one of the things they did was to disarm the whole Indian population. They brought into being what called the Indian Arms Act, etc., and so on. And anybody they deemed who was hostile to them, they were basically either eradicated or they had their weapons and their lands and their properties confiscated and so on. So it was during British Raj that the Vidya became suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take long if you take one generation and re-educate them and tell them nothing about what the previous generations understood and studied, etc., so on. And in one generation, things will just vanish. So the average Sikhs, either they don't have access to the ancient texts, or they're not, like I say, educated enough to read them. because the texts are like in Dasam Granth, Suprakash, then Braj Pasha, and then archaic language.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, like I said, it takes a generation to be neglectful of any tradition, anything. And that tradition, which could be thousands of years old, like Kshatriya is, and then in one generation, it's all over. It's like a father. If a father fails to pass on his heritage to his son, or the son just turns his back and says, I don't want this.
Yeah.
Then the future generation will never know that this stuff existed. Like. So Sanatan Shastar Vidya, from just a physical point of view. So their understanding is body mechanics, of learning to move with gravity. Hence the meditations and so on, to relax and focus the mind, because they have to get rid of all tension in the body. So tension is, you have what's called mental tension, you have emotional tension, you have physical tension. And even mental, emotional tension will manifest itself as physical tension in the body. Now, if you look at the modern day world, how many people are constantly suffering from the anxieties, worries, all due to mental, emotional tensions and so on.
True.
Now, with Kshatriya, I mean, ancient warriors, you can't get more intense than being in a battlefield where the army is going to chop you up. So they learned coping mechanisms with this, how to work with this and so on. So traditionally, we teach particular sets of meditations, also a particular martial yoga, in which we teach how to create a body that is what we call Sadol Lechkdar, that a physique that is firm, muscular, symmetrical, with soft, resilient, tensile strength, that you can then, just by relaxing, work with gravity.
Wow.
And just by doing that, by learning how to work with gravity, so the average person, when they use their muscles and so on, they utilize them by contracting and protracting, muscular use. Whereas the ancient Rishis, they worked out how through a relaxing, then expanding, to engage with the body with gravity, and proportionately, it is much stronger than the direct muscular way and so on. And thus, working with gravity, I'll tell you, okay, let me give you an example. If you have a good posture,
Right.
then you are working with gravity. In Kshatriya, we have 3 levels of posture. On the other hand, if you now, even for a couple of hours, start stooping,
Yeah.
walking around in the stoop with your back, then your back will go, your spine will become weak, and your health will deteriorate with bad posture. A lot of people just don't know how to work with gravity. So when they're standing with crooked feet, crooked ways. That crookedness then goes to the knees and the hips and the spine and so on. And then if your body becomes crooked and so on, then it'll affect your mind and body as well, like your spirit as well. If you're like a person who's constantly in pain,
Yeah.
or suffering, his mood is not going to be the best,
True.
and so on. So our mind, body, and spirit, and our physical, it's all connected. So
How
in
is
Sanatan
Shastra Vidya different from martial arts or modern combat forms?
it's very difficult. It is very different for them. So majority of martial arts, which are now found in Japan, China, West, and so on, they are either exhibition arts. That means they're done for like a circus act.
Correct.
And they're just for showing and so on, acrobatics. Some are sport. Others are sport, like MMA and all that. They're sport martial arts. And so they have to fight within certain rules and parameters and so on. Whereas Sanatan Shastar is not even a combat art, it's a battlefield art. So they're still training the way they were trained to fight ancient battles and so on, which is still relevant now, because in terms of how to draw weapons, how to engage people with arms and so on. And it's still relevant in terms of self-defense and protecting yourself. And it's still relevant for even methods of firing guns and so on, that you can fire on the move while staying stable, which even the modern armies don't have. So it's still relevant, but overall, there's a health aspect to it. There, it touches your culture, your history, your traditions, your philosophy. It's a whole total way of life. So Kshatriya is part of the Upavedas of the Veda. It's an Upaveda. It's a complementary knowledge to the Vedas.
Right.
So as a consequence, it's how can I say, Kshatriya covers more than just the physical arts. So apart from your health and so on, and then also how your health in terms of physical health, in terms of emotional, mental, so on as well. But also, like I said, it links your culture. There's history there, tradition there, philosophy there, and it's Vishal, we say in Punjabi. Vishal means like all-encompassing.
Yes.
It's not just one thing and so on. So technical Kshatriya there, like how to break arms, legs, or even kill and so on, unarmed weapons and so on. It's ordered to be utilized as a last and final resort when I can't avoid, circumvent, escape from violence. There's no other way I can protect myself or others or so on. And I'm given no choice, but then it's the last and final resort. And this is where a lot of people don't realize, like, even in society, modern day society, whether I'm in the UK or here in Canada or in India, anywhere in the world, every citizen, male or female, has the right to defend themselves.
Right.
Okay? They don't have the right to hurt other people, harm other people.
Right.
But if you are attacked and there's no other way you can prevent the other person from hurting you or killing you or raping you, whatever, as a final resort, long as it is justifiable in the courts, you can defend yourself even with lethal force. There's a Sikh in England who got attacked by 6 people with blades, knives, machetes, and hammers and so on. Only, I think, 2018, January, somewhere around there. And he ended up killing 3 of them because he had his little dagger with him as well. Like, he was totally acquitted and so on. Because he had no choice. Like, if 6 people attack you with weapons and they're going to kill you,
Yeah.
and you can't run away, you can't hide, you can't do nothing. So it is there. So that is the scary part of Kshatriya. A lot of people say, well, I don't get murdered, I don't do this, I don't do this. That's fine, like. But what we're saying is that, like I say, Kshatriya is much more than that. There's so most of the time, like, it's just how to get physically, mentally, emotionally fit and so on. And like I said, it connects with our culture, our history, our tradition. So like that questions you asked, like, what is karma? Is there free will? This. The bit they're teaching, they explain all this.
Right.
Because until you understand your past, you will not know what is your present true situation and so on.
So you speak very
you need to-
interestingly. Sorry, Gurudev. You speak very interestingly about taking charge of your chariot. Like Krishna guided Arjuna. So what
Yeah.
does that mean for someone today who feels stuck, afraid, or directionless?
रुकावट के लिए खेद है. अगर आपको हमारा कंटेंट और कॉन्वर्सेशंस अच्छे लग रहे हैं तो प्लीज़ लाइक, सब्सक्राइब एंड शेयर करिए अपने फैमिली मेम्बर्स और फ्रेंड्स के साथ. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वॉचिंग.
Okay, so like I said, the modern world, on one hand, is wonderful
Yeah.
and so on. But on the other hand, is high pressure.
Yeah.
And if you look at everywhere I go in the world, I go to Americas, I go to England, I go Europe, Germany, or I come here, or go to India. There's that, the kids that go to school, then they're going to go to university, then they get a degree, wherever, then they're going to find work, and it's just, as they say, doggy dog. Everything is hyper, it's intense. There's so much competition, everything and so on. And a lot of people just can't just step back, take a stoic approach, evaluate everything. Like you have to say, what's the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? What's most likely is going to happen? And so on. So managing not just the pressures is more so managing your response to it. Okay, so we can't, like, everything out there, we don't have control over. We can't do it. If tomorrow World War III is going to start, we can't do anything about it. But our response we can manage. How we respond to it, and so on. And that's the key thing. So it's all about Manajit Jagjit. So, I mean, like recently in the Punjab, there's a horrific case of some social influencer getting murdered and that is pure evil, that is. Okay? So, Manajit Jagjit is, okay, there's always good things in the world, there are negative things in the world. There are some things that we think are good, but someone thinks is not so good. Just like food, like you may like gulab jamun, I may like rasmalai, but we're not going to fight over it.
I do like gulab
That's what I want.
jamun.
I'm a gulab jamun person as well.
Yeah,
like.
yeah. So Gurudev Ji, you
Anyway,
also
the thing
said,
is,
sorry, please.
so your response, like how you respond to it, and the way to move this world is like Guru Nanak used to say this is man jite jag jeet. Conquer your own mind, your own responses to it.
And that's the
so
most
on.
difficult
And
part.
then that's the and then like I said, like that, like the young girl that got killed because of the gun, because the filth where they perceived she's do that. But that filth, what is good and what is pure, is in all of us. Like I can take my mind in this direction or that direction. It's like when you go on Facebook, you might find something that's horrible. Like you can then put a button and say, okay, not interested.
Correct.
Then you get something that's good and you like, yes, I'm interested in this. Same way in life. You click that button and you go, okay, I'm not interested in this nonsense,
So
but
I
I'm interested
focus
in
on
this
something.
nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have beautifully mentioned about this thing, which I want you to please help and understand in next 2 minutes if possible. You've said strength isn't given, it's taken. Courage isn't inherited, it is forged. So how help someone reclaim their inner strength through this path of Sanatan Shastar Vidya?
Okay, so self-confidence, like Atam Vishwas, we say, and belief in yourself. Okay, so a lot of people in the world get beaten down by circumstances, bad luck, and so whatever, so on. But no matter what, you gotta get up again. Like, okay, there's always a next day and so on. So it's not living for yourself. Like warriors in the battlefield, when they battle, they fight for their comrades, the guys next to them. So the chain is only as strong as each link, and so on. I mean, ultimately, we need to create that society where Dharma prevails. So that's the caring, sharing society. That's what our Rishi Munis taught in its pure sense. And in that society, if someone's down, you get them up, you help them up. Unfortunately, nowadays, they will like more likely make a video of them, or they're on the down, like, or maybe even kick them on when they're on the way down. Like, there's a lot of people out there who take pleasure in other people's misery. Like, if they're miserable themselves, they want to find someone else more miserable,
Sadly
so they can be less miserable. But that's not the proper way. Like, so your aapda pala, your own welfare is in sarbatta pala, and so on. So living a positive like that, okay, fine. If circumstances are not there, like now, I'm doing Kshatriya. I'm trying to preserve Kshatriya so that it gets preserved for posterity. Like. Now, at the same time, if I follow the philosophy of Karma Yoga, which is in the Bhagavad Gita, and all Kshatriyas follow this, that I can only do my best. And the end result is not in my hands. Like, you see that?
Yes.
So that's it. So each person does their best and leaves everything else to Parameshwara. And that's a philosophy that's come from the Bhagavad Gita. And it is true that it was true then, it's true now as well. So as a consequence, a lot of people do put undue pressure on themselves. Like, they blame themselves.
Yes.
We should have done this, we should have done this, that, this. Forget the blame game. Like, long as you are, okay, if you did something wrong, definitely, then okay, blame yourself. If you went out of the way to harm someone and he ended on your back. But do your best and do what you do sincerely. And then that's it. Leave it at that. That's what the ancient core masters teach, that you just do your best and that's it. And then the society you want to be in is a society which rewards people like that. Which rewards people who are doing their best and so on. If my best is like, say, I give an analogy like press-ups. Say I could do like 10 press-ups.
Right.
If that is my best, and someone's best is 100, and even though the one does 100, does what's called like only 70, and then the person who does 10 does 10, the one with 10 is the best. He's the one who's sincere. He's done his best. Okay. So each one do their best, like, and don't then, if my best is better than someone else's best, instead of looking at them and like taunting them and looking down at them, you help them to get to your level and then help them to go beyond if you can.
That's
every
Seva.
Generation.
That's Seva.
That's it. That's Seva as well. Like, so every generation, as a father,
right.
I want my children to be better than me in every way.
True.
I have gone this far. I can give my experience to them and they go there. So when you have that kind of, like Gurudev says, there's when no one fears no one, no one's intimidated. That means you have the freedom to be who you are, what you are. And as long as you're not harming yourself or anybody else, and you can be free to do that, then there's no fear, no anxieties, worries. Thus, you get a halimi, his Arabic word. Halim, he means intelligent and compassionate.
Intelligent
And that's how you want to live your
compassionate.
life, intelligently and compassionately.
Yeah.
You can't do both, like intelligence and compassion come together, and you're gonna live like that. As a consequence, when you live like intelligent and compassionate life, and you seek Sirvatapala, you'd be surprised these anxieties, these worries, they just fade away. Like
How beautifully.
a lot of this burden of anxiety and worries, you bring it upon yourselves. Like
My last question to you, and that to something so beautiful coming. You're teaching us intelligence and compassion and come together, and it's coming from somebody who specializes in building warriors. It's such a beautiful thought to come from you, Gurudev Ji. The last question, in an age ruled by technology, and I can't finish this conversation without asking this, where it is too much of noise, as you said, and fear, can the wisdom of ancient warriors still guide us? And if so, where do we begin and how? If somebody wants to be a part of understanding how, like for example, if I want to learn this art from you, where you said that, you need to be in the flow of gravity, how do I do that?
okay, so let's look. So the ancient wisdom, which has been distilled over the centuries. So in every generation that has existed, from the very first caveman, as you can say,
Yeah.
they have asked God. God means who am I, what am I, where am I, why am I. So anybody who's half intelligent, inquisitive, they have asked questions. They ask questions in India, they ask questions in Arabia, they ask in America, all the planet, the wise amongst our community of our humanity, the inquisitive. So they have asked questions.
Yeah.
Who am I, what am I, where am I, and so on. And the infinite is grand, like it's beyond comprehension and so on. The more we know, it's the less we know.
True.
And that is so, because it just keeps on. It's more and more. There's no end to it. There's a beautiful analogy we give in Kshatriya there. We say Shiva went up the mountains and he looked at the stars and he asked the questions: are there more stars or the empty space between them? And then Shiva came down the mountain, Kailash, and he meditated in a cave. And then he asked the question: is there more out there in the universe or more in my imagination? Okay. So this is when they pose this when they say this, they mean you got to keep an open mind. Like the word Brahm means beyond limits, infinite, and so on. So you're always going to be seeking to widen your horizons, as the ancient Rishi Munis and so on. Don't be confining it to this knowledge or this. Nothing's absolute but the absolute. Nothing's absolute but the absolute, as they say again. So with this frame of understanding, there's nothing's absolute, and you're keeping an open mind, you're exploring and all this. And as our Rishi Munis sages explore the universe, the world, and so on, they came to certain conclusions. Now, some of those conclusions may not play out throughout history. It's like modern day science. What we think is scientific truth now, maybe 20 years or 100 years from now, will be seen as absurd.
Absolutely.
It's not true.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't mean it wasn't relevant in that age. Because all knowledge is built upon the knowledge on the shoulders of previous knowledge and so on. So as a consequence, the ancient masters, the Gurudevs, the Gurus, the teachers, they all have to be respected. Because if you take them, if they were not there, then we will not be where we are now. So they have to be respected. So true knowledge comes first with the respect of the teachers. If you don't respect your teacher, you will not learn anything. Because that means if you don't respect the teacher, you don't respect the knowledge he gives and so on. And then if you mix into this your own ego, then you will start misinterpreting it, falsely interpreting it, or limiting that knowledge to your own limitations and so on. So from a spiritual perspective now, like breathing, if you breathe, you're alive. If you don't breathe, you're dead. When a child is born, the first thing we check is breath, is the crying and so on. So breath is the thread upon which all life is suspended. So ancient Rishi Munis understood this, and they created a science called the pranayama, science of breathing. Like in Shakti, it is the same. Like when we align with gravity, we want to take a posture, whether sitting or standing, that is optimal for breathing. And if you take that posture, so it's breath. So with breath, we adopt the optimal posture. Just by stooping forwards and breathing, you find it's restrictive. But if you go upright, proper, your breathing becomes nice and clean. If you, and same way with the breath, they control the mind as well. Like deep breath. So even now, like you stub your toe and you're hurting, take a deep breath. If you're getting angry, take a deep breath, and then just let it calm yourself down. So correct breathing, pranayama, is where all spirituality, all martial traditions, all life begins. If your breathing is inhibited, while it's called, let's say you got your legs too forward, or you got a bad posture, or you're snoring at night, that will definitely affect you physiologically and psychologically as well. Like, so if you say, where's my spirituality begin? It means with good breathing. Like, in order for that, you need a good environment. You don't want to stand next to and take a deep breath next to a rubbish tip.
Or on the road where there's
You need
too
to
much
go
of
to seek
traffic.
him, like. You go to seek him where there's fresh air, like.
Yes. So
Nice, clean
you're
air
trying
and
to
so
say
on.
that you need to be in the nature. You need to be with the
Nature,
mother.
yeah,
earth.
breath, and even like.
Breath.
So be a natural spot. I mean, if you are in tune with nature,
Yeah.
and so on. I mean, we live in cities. We know that we live in cities, like. But just having a plant or something around the house or so on, having a nice garden or seeking nature and so on. Well, I think all the ashrams in the past were always in the forests and the jungles and the mountains next to the rivers and so on. I mean, recently we were in Hardwar, and we moved on to Rishikesh, and there we did some shooting for Sunyam Kriya, which is a martial yoga on the banks of the Ganges.
Wow.
It is so beautiful, so peaceful and so on. So we need to take this, so like you have all this doggy dog and you got this rat race going on in the modern day world, the material world of my eyes, we say, which has always been there. It's nothing new. It's always been there. But we need to like detach ourselves.
And be
From
more
there.
wise.
Yeah. And breathing is the first thing. You'd be surprised how many people do not breathe correctly. Like,
Yep.
and so on. And a lot of the mental panicking and everything happens when they are not breathing correctly and so on. So having a correct breath in terms of posture and everything else, it'll calm you down. Like, just take a deep breath.
Right.
But if you can find a nice place, like next to the Himalayas, where you can take a deep breath,
Something like
nice forest with fresh, it's a better it is. I wouldn't recommend taking deep breath in Delhi.
Yes, of course. Gurudev Ji, your last message for the corporate world, especially in India, where everyone seems to be very, very stressed. Any message for the corporate people, business people?
Understand what your goals are first, like, and so on. And then take into consideration how you are trying to achieve those goals. And obviously, if those goals are being achieved in nefarious ways, there's going to be consequences and so on. Because when someone does something wrong, they know they're doing it wrong. Like, and whether they want to ignore it or not, they can try to ignore it, but it'll still play on them and so on mentally. So, yeah, have a goal, see how you're trying to achieve them, right? And then accordingly, then act and so on. But like I said, it's like don't lose yourself. Okay, now just do your best. Do your best, and where you need to. Okay, you might have a stratagem. So stratagem is like end goal.
Yeah.
The final thing we're going to achieve. You have a stratagem. So in chapter there, our stratagem is to live a long, happy life. Simple stratagem. Okay, but then you have tactics. Now, where stratagem should be permanent. Like once you have a stratagem, this is the permanent. That's it. It's not going to change.
Yeah.
This is it. So in chapter there, we say we're going to live a long, happy life, and that's it. That's the final goal, and that's not going to change. But the tactics can change. So, for instance, if say I want to go to I'm in Toronto now, I want to go to Ottawa, and I said this is the route I'll take.
Correct.
But if that route is blocked due to traffic or whatever accident, I can take a different route.
Correct.
And if that is not happening, I can take a different. So you can change your tactics. So have a mindset that is not too rigid, like. You have your captains, because we can't basically, okay, you can be orchestrating it all, but sometimes you need good captains and who can take the initiative themselves. So the tactics can be varied and altered and so on. Okay. And if you're the top guy, you're going to be aware, okay, if they're changing tactics, you're going to know a reason why they're changing tactics and so on. But let them do it. So have a solid strategy, but be tactically flexible.
Wow. So I think if I were to just decode what you said and beautifully explain, there is one which is we need to become in sync. The physical body needs to be in sync with the gravitational force. The breathing needs to be
So So the mind, body, and spirit.
mind, body, and
That's okay.
spirit.
Tanmanatma needs to be in harmony with itself and so on. And relax. So the physical way of doing that is just working in Kshatriya we teach you working with gravity and so on. And with that then there's a whole regime of martial yoga exercises. And just like in Hatha yoga, there's a physical preparation for the meditations and spirituality. So is Kshatriya as well. So we're Kshatriyas, we're warriors. So whereas yogis who do Hatha yoga, they are basically training so they can sit long hours of contemplation, meditation, and so on. Whereas we are trained to be, so in the battlefield, to be fully active, physically, we need to be moving within less than a blink.
Yes.
Well, like we want a pound, we're going to cover like 18 feet, then less than a blink and so on. So we need that kind of energy,
Somebody
that kind of power.
Get trained on this? What you're
Yeah,
saying?
it can be similar. Yeah.
I am so much looking forward to. I have done
All
Hatha
this is
yoga
there.
at Rishikesh. Now I'm so much looking forward to learning this art from you, and I'm going to be enrolling first for martial yoga.
Well, there are, like I said, there are books out there now. There are 3 volumes coming on Sanatan Shastar Vidya, which explain exactly what Sanatan Shastar Vidya is. Because we need a discerning public.
Right.
As you know, like once something gets popular or gets out there, a lot of charlatans and Chulgians who say they're going to pop up to jump on the bandwagon and so on, and a lot of fakes and so on. So we need a public that's informed so they can discern, well, this is actually what the Vidya is and what is not. And then there's the app now coming out that anybody in the world, they can sit there and learn from it and so on. And there's a Sanatan Shastar Vidya, which is already there for the adults.
Wow.
There's a section coming for children as well.
Oh, wow.
You'd be surprised how many children in everyday life, like, I mean, if a child faces bullying,
Yes.
intimidation
Yes.
at school and so on, that can affect him for the whole of his life. That trauma, they can carry throughout their life.
True.
And they can even pass it on to others and so on. But a child should be carefree and happy and thus engage with the world fully without any fears, anxieties, and so on.
And inhibitions. Okay.
And that's why building the child healthy and strong and confident that's what Kshatriya does for small children, like 6, 7, 8-year-olds. We don't teach them anything lethal techniques or techniques that will harm the children, but we teach them that they can, if someone pushes them, grabs them, and so on,
they can handle it.
they can protect themselves, but without hurting the other child.
Right.
Because we don't want children hurting children, but it's there more to build their confidence.
Right.
And then with teenagers, which are now, because children will have their parents around, teachers around to protect them. Now teenagers are going to engage with the world by themselves, but they still need to be able to protect themselves, defend them. So they're taught non-lethal techniques because we don't want them in prison. We want them to be able to protect themselves, defend themselves, and so on. Teenagers and so on. And then by next year, we're looking at next year, bringing out something for females.
Wow.
Now, with females, you got to realize in the world, globally,
Yes.
females will face violence, intimidation, 3 times more than any male would. That's the sad thing of it. If you look at the statistics, the United Nations statistics on violence against women, it is horrendous. And a lot of this violence happens in their own household.
Yep.
A lot of their intimate partners or some family members or neighbors, whatever, and so on. So the violence, not just physical violence, even mental violence, gaslighting, all the rest of it, and so on. And all that that represses females physically, mentally, emotionally, and so on. Now, females' upper body strength is 50 to 60% less than an average man.
Right.
and lower body strength is, I think, is 60-70% less. Okay. Now you do get athletic women like weightlifters who are stronger than the average person, but generally, like say, the female is like half the strength of a male, and that's what gives the male the advantage. Okay, the strength. Just like animals, if you have a bear or a tiger or a lion, it's going to be much more stronger than a man.
True.
So in Kshatriya, from right from the beginning of time, our Devi, Durga, Chandi, she's the goddess of war. It's a Devi. She's Chand Prachand, fierce and ferocious. And all our Devi Devta, I mean, even a lot of people now, like if you say Ram, and everybody knows he's a Kshatriya warrior. In the Sikh tradition, in the Ramayana of Guru Gobind Singh, even Sita is a warrior. And Draupadi is a warrior of the Pandu's wife. Because all the Kshatriyaniya, all the Kshatriya women in the past were taught the Chorskala, which includes the martial traditions and so on. Wow. So just like when a man faces, say, a lion or a tiger, the weapons become the equalizers and so on.
Correct.
Same with Kshatriya there with the females. So the females are taught not a martial art in the sense like exchanging punches and kicks and grappling and wrestling, like in the movies. In the movies, you get a female kickboxing with a villain or 10 villains and all that. That's all nonsense. It ain't going to happen in the real world. Otherwise, you'll have women competing in boxing, wrestling, everything with men. That ain't going to happen. Like, but there are ways of protecting and defending yourself and shoring yourself up mentally, emotionally, able to assess a dangerous situation and basically lay down the boundaries that this line is not to be crossed.
True.
Because no person, male or female, young or old, should live a life of fear and so on. And fear, I'll tell you an example. There's a student of mine in Germany, and she was standing at a railway station. And some pervert came, just physically brushed past her, touching her breasts. And that poor girl was so traumatized, she didn't leave her house for a whole year. And you have a lot of that like this. You have this incidents and so on. And if you look at the violence against female, not just physical violence, but sexual violence in India and around the world is very, very high. Like, and this is contradiction and a paradox when in India, young girls are spoken as the form of the Devi, like the Kanchika and all this and so on. But then you have the other ugly reality of it. Like,
True.
And this is where the Kshatriya spirit can come in. So when young men are taught Shastra Vidya, they're not just taught how to utilize their fists and kicks and hands and weapons and all the rest of it. They're taught the morality, the ethics.
Right.
Because this Vidya is there to defend, uphold Dharma. It's not there to bully people, intimidate people. So the ethics and morality, this is taught alongside this. And same with the children, to not engage. So like the violence is the last thing you want to engage in. And it's the final resort. And it is not the first option or even second, third, and so on. You seek to avoid circumstance, escape, and diffuse the situation, see the trouble around the corner, avoid it, and so on, and just be sensible about it.
Absolutely.
Common sense.
Absolutely.
Then only as a last and final resort is any kind of physical violence. And legally, like I said, you have a right to protect and defend yourself. No one has a right to harm you, rape you, anything like that. No one has that right.
Very well.
And then once a society, as they say in Punjabi, we say we sherput. If a society becomes sherput, like the sons of tigers, they say gade, like donkeys and so on. Society. So we need to make the male, the female, small children mutually respect each other. And when a lot of disrespect from males happen because they perceive females as weak. That's how they see themselves. That they see the females as weak and they can dominate them. And usually find is the most pathetic of men who actually harm ladies and so on. And because that's the only way they can feel they believe that they're men like. But that's not the case like. So in an ancient society, amongst the Kshatriyas, and you will see that they taught not only the Kshatriyas Shastar Vidya so on, but they even taught low castes, who they considered to be low castes, and all people in society has a right to defend themselves, says the ancient Shastras. So the whole society is taught how to protect themselves, defend themselves. And this self-defense is not only like physical punching, but intellectually they can defend themselves. If what you believe, you can't defend what you believe, your beliefs are not going to be strong. Like, so if you can't defend, I mean, we're not talking about justifying who you are, what you are, but you must have the ability to defend your way of life. I am this, I'm wearing this, I'm eating this, whatever I'm doing. So Kshatriya self-defense is more than just physical self-defense. It begins with a concept called Atam Vishwas, self-belief. If there's no self-belief, nothing's going to
There's
happen.
nothing that can happen if there is no self-belief. So wonderfully put. I cannot mention and even describe how awesome I'm feeling after. And thank you so much for thinking for women. I think what you just spoke about, that there is a special thing that you're doing for women, and I think there is a new book also that is coming out. That edition will be out.
Yeah, the books are coming out. Like I said, Sanatan Shastar Vidya, 3 volumes. There's one on, it's called that's called Sikh scriptures, which is called Call to Sikh Wisdom, which is the secret of Naam, spirituality. And there's one book which came actually first, and this one is it's called Kshatriya, instructions with regards to deceptive characters. Because as a Kshatriya, and we're not taught to seek the truth.
Why?
We're taught to seek the lies first. Because in Dark Age, in Kal Yuga, lies masquerade as truth. And once you can figure out what's a lie, what's a deception, and so on, the truth itself will stick out.
Yeah.
So we seek the truth in an indirect way by identifying the lies and deceptions. So there's a very famous book by Gurudev Nidar Singh. It's called Kshatriya, Instructions with Regards to Deceptive Characters. And these are exotic Sikh tales of erotica, cunning, humor, love, valor, vice, virtue, magic, wisdom, and spirituality. So Guru Gobind Singh realized in the world there are potholes. Like in a road, there's a pothole.
Right.
And if we ignore the pothole, we're going to have an accident. So young men, young women, and they have to be informed that there are holy, good things and pure things in the world, there are honest and decent people in the world, there are also the opposite.
Correct.
There's the darkness in the world as well. There's evil in the world as well. There is deceivers and cheaters. So don't be so pole pale, as they say. Look. Don't be so naive. So Kshatriya, instructions regarding deceptive characters, are tales which bring, especially young adults, into the real world. That this stuff is there. Look. And so on one hand, we're writing books on the martial traditions and the martial arts and explaining all the science, and so they're reference books. So in the future, no one gets misled by charlatans and so on. They know exactly what the art is, where it's sourced from, and what it actually is, the science of it. Then there's, like you asked about Guru Granth Sahib and spirituality, there's a text which are explaining what is the spirituality of Guru Granth Sahib, etc. So on. That's coming out there as well, and connecting with the whole of the Sanatan tradition. And then also there are texts like this one, Kshatriya, which is like one of the largest writings of Guru Gobind Singh, and it's very rare. Like most Sikhs not aware of it. Like some of the more fundamentalists object to it because it depicts that dark side of the world, which is held like a mirror in front of you. So these fundamentalists and fanatics, when they read and look into it, it shows a reflection of them, like. Because you may appear to be all holier than thou on the surface, and so on, like those murderers in the Punjab recently. They're holier than thou and we're this. But you're not. Like, the Guru's not so stupid. Like, we know that there is evil in the world. If we can know the evil, we can know what is bad out there. Or as they give the analogy, the pothole. If we pretend the pothole's not there, we're going to have accidents. So we need to register the pothole as soon as possible. The further away we register the pothole, then we just have to do a little micro adjustment and we can avoid it. The nearer we get to the portal, the more chances of accident happening and so on. So the Kshatriya tradition is, you have a Sant tradition, also sadhus and sants, who only speak of what is good and what is pure, what is holy. In the Kshatriya tradition, we do look into what is negative and bad and so on, so we can spot it, so we're aware of it and so on, and not pretend that this doesn't exist. It does exist.
And avoid those
Exists.
potholes in the life.
And yeah, and exists in outside, exists in us as well, like.
True.
So we have to see the potholes within ourselves, like.
We are definitely
So on.
having a very, very detailed conversation once this book is out. And
So these books are already out, like Kshatriya, the first volume is out
Yes.
already. It's available in India, whereas in the West, it's available with images. Because images with these images are like more Kama Sutra element and so on, because that's what the subject matter increases. So a unillustrated version of Kshatriya is available in India. And the Naam book is also first volume available in India as well on Amazon. And also is the Kshatriya book. So we're going to bring a whole library of books. Because the idea is we're educators. We're going to the only way forward in the modern day world. I mean, India today, yeah, it's like when Indians put that satellite or whatever on Mars, and you saw all those aunties at the back and ladies at the back, super scientists and all that. It's education. Education is the way forward, not fanaticism, not violence or anything like that. And Kshatriya is just one tool in your box that if you require it to defend yourself, protect yourself or your family, whatever, or nation, it is there available and so on. But because Sanatan Shastar is an Upaved, so it is linked, it's a higher knowledge. So Upaved means complementary knowledge to the Vedas. So you have Stapani Veda that deals with architecture, you have what you call Ayurveda, medicine. The same way, Kshatriya deals with how to protect and defend yourself and your society. But the defense is not just the physical self-defense, it's mental, emotional, and so on. Because if you get a warrior who's what's called oppressed by anxiety, worries, and like for instance, like in the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita all begins because Arjun drops his weapons and he feels that he cannot do his Kshatriya duty in the face of fighting his family members and friends and all that. But then what does Satguru Krishna Maharaj do? He explains the whole totality of reality and makes him pick up weapons to do his Kshatriya duty. Like, so every one of us can be a Brahmin. Brahmin means he knows Brahmvidya, spiritual knowledge. Every one of us can be a Kshatriya who guards and nurtures Dharma. We can be a Vaishya, one who makes material wealth to support society. And even the word Shudra just means one who serves society. That's what it is. So in Guru Gobind Singh's philosophy, we are Brahmins, Kshatriya, Shudra, Vaishya,
together.
all in one.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you
That's who we are.
so much. Thank you so much, Gurudev Ji. I think you just said that protect, prepare, and that is where lies the peace. So I believe what you explained so beautifully about Sikhism and the culture, the gravitational force that works in the body for the alignment of body, mind, spirit. And so this will definitely, and most definitely help a lot of people who will watch this and would love to read your books, because that is where you are giving the knowledge in the most easiest way. What I feel is you are decoding that Vedic knowledge. So
it's all been like the way it's written is like it's like arithmetic.
Yes.
So you present the knowledge.
Yeah.
Then you present all the citations, the evidence, and so on. And as a discerning reader, you should be able to look up add things up and so on.
And understand.
Like I said, what Kshatriya teaches you, like all Kshatriya is to question everything.
Wonderful.
Question yourself, question others, to look past, know what's not true, what is not right, and so on. And then don't just be a blind, like I say, andapagda, like I say, just believe. No. First, investigate.
And question the reality also.
Question, yeah. As the ancient Rishi Munis do, like.
Thank you so much.
That's what our tradition is. Okay.
Thank you so much, Gurudev Ji, for your very, very valuable time. Such an honor to be sitting with you and discussing this. Okay. And I hope to have another conversation with you in this series again.
Fantastic. Like that.
Thank you.
Okay, namaste. Work out, Siva.
Thank you.